this is an episode with Luke Fink, one of our international drivers on Drift Week. This is the very last day of Drift Week, which is so sad. Everyone's about to go home. It's been an absolutely amazing adventure for me. So let's first start off, what's it like drifting in America versus Australia? What's the difference?
Not a whole lot of difference. I think back home, just because, not necessarily for this trip, but I did do a drift event or two before I came on Drift Week. Was tough finding people to tandem with. I think people are a little bit more scared to tandem here, which is weird. I guess everyone's sort of down for it at home.
I think it depends where you are too.
Yeah. Well, Winter Jam, I thought people would be down, and that was like the least accommodating place for a tandem. It was very difficult to find a tandem there, and I don't like driving on my own. Since we've been on the trip, that has not been an issue at all, finding tandem partners. Everyone's been super rad to drive with, and we're all down for the cause. But overall, it's very similar. Lots of people probably, for the most part, overbuild their cars here, from what I've seen.
I thought the exact same thing of Australia. I was like, these dudes overbuild their cars times a million when I was there.
Because of the tyre rule?
Just because when I was there. But it might have just been the type of event.
That's a minority in Australia, to be honest. The big power, crazy builds. But like everyone here is sort of shooting for that Pro 2, Pro 1. Like everyone's trying to be a pro driver here, so that obviously shows in the car builds. That would probably be the biggest difference. Driving styles in the States is a little bit more handbrakey, handbrake initiations and stuff like that.
That's an underhand slight comment against American drivers.
No, it is. It's just the fact is, like, a lot of guys here will come in on the e-brake sort of thing, where we try and push a bit more of a Japanese style in Australia, where it's more of a flick and kick. So that's probably the biggest difference as far as driving style goes, that I've noticed. Other than that, once you're in the slide, everything's pretty similar. And even over here, people are trying to get that snappy transition and stuff like that, which is a big thing in my driving. I try to be as snappy as possible because it just looks cooler.
Okay.
And that's all drifting's about, is looking cool. So, yeah, that's all that matters.
I always lead the conversation. You lead the conversation, so.
Okay.
I threw him on the spot, though, so.
Okay.
But he's a smart guy. He has things to say.
Things to say? What about drifting? We could talk about drifting.
Sure, let's do it.
I like drifting.
I like drifting.
It's a weird place to talk about drifting.
Drifting is like heroin. It's a chemical addiction. Everything else in life becomes kind of boring after that.
Absolutely.
You don't want to go to dinner parties. You don't want to do normal stuff and everything.
Like Disneyland is the worst place in the world for a drifter, because we're used to like that constant stimulation, and you go there and sit in a line and you want to murder people. I think that's a problem. A good thing or a bad thing, I don't know.
I've got something on that same vein. We did a drunken podcast that my buddy Dion didn't want online. So we left it up for like a day and pulled it down. But one of the really good questions that he asked in it was, why do we still drift? Why haven't we quit? Like, why haven't we all quit? Like, your life could be infinitely better. You'd have a better house. You'd have a better
not
401k.
A better house. I would have a house.
Okay, you'd have a house, yeah. You would have, like a normal car. Like, you'd be driving a car that's new with, a warranty, and you would be relaxed, and like you'd be in different clothes. No, this isn't things we'd want, but empirically, you would have a better life if someone was to measure the quality of your life on some type of chart. Why do we drift?
That's a weird one for me, because my situation is unique in the fact that I make my living from it, and I couldn't see a better quality of life than I have right now.
Yeah.
From a point of view of the amount of time I get to spend with my children.
Let's back up 2 years ago, before you made that switch. Your life probably was...
Yeah, paid, probably more paycheck to pay, more stressful. But I think it was so difficult for me because those transitions were all made at the same time of having kids and being like, all right, you need to grow up now. Because the kids really, when you have a child, it really does give you that kick in the butt to like get your shit together, to make sure you have like a nice daily driven car, make sure you have a nice home and things like that. Where pre-kids, I guess,
you didn't care.
Pre-kids drifting, it was like, I need tyres, I'm going to have to eat noodles this week. There was no compromise of over drifting, where now there's things that are more important than drifting. But it's extremely high priority, and everything we were doing, and even with my children, obviously they're coming on this trip, is, we enjoy drifting and they enjoy drifting. My wife loves drifting, possibly even more than me. I've got myself in a unique position where I can still do it a lot, even though I've got all those things that are meant to like stop you from drifting, where everyone thinks, kids and businesses and all this sort of stuff can slow you down, where I've actually found I've done more drifting of a legal sense, not just out street drifting at night, but I've done more track drifting and things like that, and more seat time probably these days, because I got my shit together and I'm making decent money and have a home and somewhere to live. I'm not just couching it and scumming it. So yeah.
All right, next topic. Are you just looking up our noses side?
Yes.
Dang. Is it look
sharp.
stupid?
It's so sharp.
Oh,
see everything.
should I look down like this? I don't think about this much, but once you stop and think about it, you're like, oh shit, this is real. There's no one guiding drifting. There's no leading force. Like back 20 years ago, Option Video was leading drifting and they were guiding, and everyone followed like the media, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
If the media made drifting look like something where everyone wore green gloves, suddenly drifting was everyone wore green gloves.
Yeah.
If drifting was everybody had a body kit and an S15 with a paint job or something, that's what everyone aspired to. There's no one necessarily leading drifting at the moment, other than maybe people trying to go pro in certain ways or whatever. Do you ever feel pressure to direct drifting in some way that is in some positive manner, where like with Drift Week, we're kind of changing things. With my little Texas Street Legal series, we're changing things. Getting rid of qualifying, we're changing things. Yeah. I'm actively trying. I'm not saying that I'm doing a good job or that I'm even influential, but take Adam for example. Adam probably doesn't realize that he's influencing a whole range of drifters in the future, just like Option Video did, that he's so large.
Yeah.
So if Adam were to go out and be like, oh, RX-8s with, straight pipe Renesis motors are the jam, you'd have a bunch of people building them and ruining their lives.
Well, look at the 350Z thing. I would say Adam would be pretty much at the forefront of that. You know what I mean?
I made Adam do that. We forced him.
Yeah, but you might have. But then,
but then he makes
so
everybody
many people that
buying it because
since
of his.
then, honestly, his videos had some influence in me getting one. You know what I mean? I just watched.
Yeah.
Just wasn't braking, thrashing laps. I'm like, it makes sense. And I guess that's the thing these days with influencers. And going back on what you're initially saying, it's not just drifting these days. It's just everything. I come from a BMX background. I still follow BMX, and it's just so, because there's so much media and so much going on. There's no one thing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like BMX days, for any BMX guys that are watching, it was props. So props was your option. And everything that happened in BMX was like you were waiting for that next props episode to come out to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And there was the new tricks out and that. It's like, right, we got to go and do that. Same thing in drifting. It was all just option drifting, and you'd watch Drift Tengoku to see what all the local Japanese are doing, and that was like the cool thing. Mm-hmm. Where now there's so much different influences and so many different avenues when it comes to drifting as well. It's only been in the last year or two where being like a YouTuber as a drifter is like a thing. You know what I mean? Like building cars and doing YouTubey stuff, or there's never been that option in drifting to be grassroots and still potentially make a living.
Stop for a second though, and we're going to direct this. You as a track owner, someone that's been hosting events, somebody that's been doing the DCA and all of these other things you're doing, even without YouTube focusing everything, you are real life, if you know what I mean, influencing your drift events. You're in real life. Each decision you make on a roll cage rule, on a seat rule, on a track rule, on an appearance rule.
Appearance rule and tire rule has been the biggest one for us, because like you said, you experienced that 235 rule, which is a very basic version of what our rule is for our drift series. Mm-hmm. But one of the biggest things we found in our country was we don't have the money. Even America doesn't have the money, you know what I mean? With a top 32 here, you still don't get in pro. And we were having the issue in Australia.
That real quick?
Well, I guess
just in 10 seconds, top 32, you're still not pro, say that?
The top 32, there's still not like a pro field in FD Pro 1, you know what I mean? There's guys still in there, they're struggling to link the course.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? It's a strong case in drifting of being able to afford it versus talent. And there's not enough people, even in America probably, that could justify affording FD that have the talent.
Perfect.
You know what I mean?
Go back to your previous thing.
And for that, it was even less so in Australia, because we have the population of New York City in the entire of Australia. So having enough pro drifters that can afford to run 5 rounds in a country just as big as yours is unrealistic, and people just couldn't do it. They'd do it for a year or two and then run out of money. They've mortgaged their houses. They've, just spent crazy amounts of money, and it just didn't make sense to me. And I'm very much a driver's driver where I just want the best drivers to do well, not the guys that have... It's not that I don't want the guys with good budget to do well, but like they shouldn't win just because they have more budget.
Right, which is normal racing in all experiences, is the person with the largest budget, and can also put together talent. But the largest budget is a huge thing because you can just buy the best talent to work with you.
But that's where, you know, I guess... you got your stuff like your BR... What do you call the BRZ? Like the 8.6 series and stuff like that? Where
FRS,
they're all equal. You got these classes with like equal cars. And if someone shines through there, the potential of them being picked up...
And drifting, you mean?
Well, no, just in as racing goes in general. Like I think if
like
someone...
a spec series.
If someone can shine through on a spec series, which essentially a tire rule series is, you're speccing to an extent. Like there's only so fast you can go on the radial tyre that in our approved series. You know, we go up to a 265 for a heavier vehicle, but if someone is shining through on that level when it really isn't about the car, you know, they're a freaking good driver. You know, we've had guys with T28s come and win multiple events, and it's just because they are a completely kick-ass driver. And if you put them in a good car against everyone else, they would murder. You know, and I guess that side of it very much appeals to me because we just don't have a huge amount of money. There's not huge sponsors or anything like that in Australia. And I watched it even here where you know what I mean? It's a struggle to fill a pro field, you know, for consecutive events. You know what I mean? You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars here to... I freaking love drifting. I can't justify that. Even if I had the money, it'd be difficult to justify spending my own money on something like that. So... Yeah, it just made sense for me, and it's weird that it was a thing where everybody was super pissed off about it at the start, the tyre rule, but everyone has very much came around to it. There's a series in South Africa that runs under my exact tyre rule, and there's a couple different series around the world that are now running, literally copy and pasted my tyre rule.
The one thing I have a problem with on the 235 tyre rule is the same car in a 265 is going to get like double the tyre life. You know what I mean?
But that comes down to being smart, obviously. At the end of the day, like, you don't... So
do those guys practice on 230 or 265s and everything so that they get better tire life? Because a 235 is going to drift very well on a lot of these cars and everything, but like it's going to burn off way faster than a 265, which has, I don't know, 30% more rubber in it or something like that.
So we've got guys in our series that even now will say... We've got guys in our series now that are convinced that just because they've taken the time to set up their cars more so than they did by just putting a big tyre on, they say that they reckon they're just as fast on a 235 as they were with a 265. It's not about
just speed, though. I was just saying tyre life.
Tyre life?
Because a 265 is definitely going to last longer than a 235 on the same size car. Especially like take your G35, for instance. Got a splinter.
Yeah. I guess it comes down to being smart with it. Like my main thing was a lot of these guys can't afford to necessarily run a big powered car, and on top of that, if they do have leftover money, I'd prefer them to have really nice looking cars as well. You know what I mean? Like that extra money. And I guess the big thing with the whole 235, 265, blah blah, it's not just the cost of the tyre or the lasting of the tyre. So many breakages with high grip cars. You know what I mean? And honestly, like your SR20 gearboxes can't handle a 265. Even your RB25s with 400 horsepower, you're snapping a 265 on a 265.
Reasons. I'm just asking.
R200 rear ends on a 265 are struggling, and I think
ours are great on 265s. We're not using grippy tires though. We're using like a KR20.
Yeah, but you still have people braking here and there.
We don't break R200s.
No,
but they do break gearboxes and stuff.
Yeah,
I'll give you that. So axles are pretty indestructible if it's at a reasonable ride height with 265s.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The problem is a lot of us like to run our cars low, so we do see axle breakages. I was going to say even on the 235,
you could break axles on a 215 if the car's super low.
Yeah,
I mean you're just wearing out the CV.
Exactly right. But I guess that side of it we saw. We prefer finished battles rather than a single car running because someone broke, and that's why we also bring in the rule of...
Okay, what's the next thing you're pushing towards the future to change things? Do you feel that pressure, by the way? To like shape drifting and push it in some direction or change it or anything?
No.
Because I feel like drifting often gets dull, and there's certain things like drifting from 2004 to say 2008 to 2012 or something, it got really stagnant. There wasn't all the media going on, like YouTube hadn't picked up and there weren't influencers pushing stuff. We simply were either watching like G4 Tech TV, like, FD for a little while, but there was only like a year or two of that anyone really saw. Like there wasn't a lot of different ways to see the content, and drifting got really stagnant, and I felt like even in Texas, like, the attendance and like the viewership were going down, and then YouTube picked up, and we were videoing Cy and I a lot and all these things, and then like boom, like it took off again.
Do you know what the biggest thing, in my opinion, that drifting lost in those years? Personalities. None of us could even understand anything they were saying in option, but it was hard not to feed on the infectious
hilarious
energy, and that was lost. Those years in FD, there was only so much like woo and this and that, which was like, it wasn't entertaining as such, where the YouTube side of it's brought back personalities.
It was a little bit of cringy personality when it's not strung out long enough. Sorry, keep going.
So people can fall in love. You know what I mean? Like, you can love a sport, but you essentially, when people are getting into it, I just got a splinter as well. So when you're getting into it, you want people to aspire to, you want people to like love. And the thing is, if there's no one to like love, you know what I mean? And it's just like some cringy stuff and a little bit of woo and this and that. Like, there's not a good personality to follow. So D1, you followed the personalities. There was just Samurai, there was Nomikin, Monkey Guy, you know what I mean? There was multiple strong personalities that people would adapt to. Like, Nomikin was never a great driver. He's a horrible driver these days.
Most famous driver, though.
Super famous, you know what I mean? Like, made a living out of the sport, and he was literally not a great driver at all. And he would you could see him getting gifted through battles because they needed him there. And it was super obvious at that stage, but they were the personalities, and people fell in love with the personalities and then continued to want to watch. When something is less personalized, like you don't get those personalities and there's no one to like fall in love with, I think you gravitate away from it. Where now, people, using Adam as an example, are in love with him. They're going to follow what he's doing, you know what I mean? And that's what they're interested in. They like his personality, they're interested in him, and therefore they'll follow drifting. And I think as a whole, that's what we need, is personalities. Personalities make stuff what it is. And I think that you even see that with NASCAR and stuff like that. Like, winning is all good and everything, but if you have a dry, bland personality and stuff, people aren't necessarily going to like you, and you're not necessarily going to be, big, I guess.
Yeah.
Winning's not everything, that's for sure.
As you say this too, there's a lot of people that have good personalities, such as yourself or Matt or Chelsea on this trip, that do pretty well. And then, a lot of, because some of these guys you wouldn't think would necessarily be sponsorable, if you know what I mean, or whatever. But like, it works out in the end. In the early days of Chelsea, I didn't think he would be super sponsorable, but then he turned out to be super sponsorable because they love his like wacky out there, persona. Same thing with Matt Field. I guess we're in some type of like youth demographic sport thing, whatever, that needs that.
It's not even youth. I find myself now even...
Extreme sport, there we go. That's the Monster Energy drink term.
But I guess, even myself as bringing drivers over, like I've only bring over drivers to Australia that I like, sort of thing, you know what I mean? And I'm bringing them over because I like their personalities, and personalities come across in driving styles as well. So there's certain people that you would and wouldn't bring based on that, and that resonates with people, I guess. An interesting thing for me personally is the whole family and drifting thing. The fact that so many people believe that family and like real life per se takes you away from your sport.
It does if your wife doesn't like the drifting.
But then you've got the wrong wife.
Not necessarily, because sometimes you need someone to ground you.
Yeah,
like,
I guess.
If a person has their own career and say, your wife's a lawyer or something and has that much work put into her thing, I don't think she's going to be into drifting as much as, you.
Yeah, because you're spending all their money.
Yeah.
Because she's probably the one making more money.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I guess more from a point of view of like a lot of people, I see them, I got a kid on the way, I'm selling my race car.
Yeah.
It's really, for
me... But like, your wife is a carbon copy of you. Chelsea's fiance is a carbon copy of him. You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
Those are unique experience. Like, there's not as many drift girls to go around as there are drift guys.
Yeah. My wife wasn't a drift girl when I met her, though. Like, she'd never drifted, pretty much.
Who's the best drifter in the world?
I don't know. It's such a difficult one, because there's so many guys that are good at different stuff.
Because I'm watching some of these guys. I watched, like, you watch James Dean and you watch Piotr. Is that how I say his name?
Piotr, yeah.
Piotr. These guys are getting so insanely good and clinical. Like, they're starting to look unbeatable sometimes because they don't make mistakes. They're going to be robots. And they're getting to be robots while having flair and being aggressive. And I really don't watch much pro drifting, though.
Yeah.
So I can't say too much about it. I was going to say it's really impressive that every few years you think the skill level kind of stagnates, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then it levels up again. You're like, Jesus, these guys are getting good.
Yeah.
Like,
There's always room to improve, and I think we're always pushing.
I was gonna say, and first of all, like the guys that are so good, like I always tell a lot of my pro-am kids, like say Chelsea or like James Dean or these guys. First of all, they've been drifting for decades now, but not only that, they're drifting every weekend almost and getting so much incredible seat time and so many cars. They're driving cars all around the planet on tracks all around the planet and stuff. It's got to be so overwhelming to be able to catch up to these guys because they're always accelerating away from, you know, the newer guys in skill level. And there's a big thing where you can take a new person and you can take the experience I've had in drifting for the last 16 or 17 years and compress it into 24 months, and they get better than me in 24 months. But when, you know, you've got someone that's on the top of the game, the best driver in the world, and they're driving that much more still, like how do you catch up? Like you can catch up to him maybe in 4 years ago, and then he's on something completely new by the time you catch up.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy. So who's the best?
I couldn't pinpoint a single person. Who's
your favorite?
I would say there's more styles I like. You know what I mean? I treat it like styles I like, because it's very, very difficult from a point of view of like, you know, like James is considered the best in the world right now, but I've driven with him. I beat James. You know what I mean? Like it's...
Listen to him go.
But it is one of those things where it's like...
What year did you beat him?
I feel on that level.
Yeah.
It's like 4 years ago.
Yeah. No, I think you're on that level.
So I guess it's more a point of me admiring guys' styles. You know what I mean? I'm at a point where I admire their styles. And
top 4 styles and go.
Top 4 styles. FD drivers, I like Chelsea's zero fucks given, Backy's mid-track and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Me and Chelsea, I think, have very similar driving styles from that point of view. You know, if I was driving FD, if I ever had the itch, that's the way I would drive. Like, it doesn't really matter about winning. Like, people remember the cool shit that happened, and I prefer to be the guy that did the cool shit. Japan, I would say there's so many good underground guys, but obviously Naoki's rad to watch. His zero Fs attitude of just absolutely demolishing every single car he gets into. Well, it is what it is. There's a couple of really good guys in Europe as well. And this is the thing too, because so much media, there's so many good guys everywhere. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? There's so many good guys everywhere, and the problem is, like, are we ever going to get all those guys together in one place? Like, I think it's impossible. And you don't need to or
anything either.
I have my favorite drivers to watch. You know, cool. That would be. I don't watch that much media online, so I'm always pretty far behind. Yeah.
I'm not checking out drivers and following them and stuff, just because I'm so busy with real life.
Yeah.
So I just sometimes pop in. I watched a Drift Masters video the other day, and I'm like, geez, like you're like, these guys are, like, that's a dangerous track. It was the one in Poland. Yeah. They're transitioning on the front part on a wall, and the guys are rubbing the fenders on concrete barriers, transitioning and then transitioning back and stuff, and you're just like, oh my God, like...
And there's so much behind the scenes on that as well, where like the FIA's involved, and they put in like weird, stupid, what they consider safety stuff, make it super dangerous for drifting, like putting tire walls.
Oh, where it
the
catches
completely
the cars
wrong spots, catches the cars and flips them, and it's like that should have just been a concrete wall, or they put concrete walls not super close to the track and leave a gap like that, which has a big drop in it, which is like making dudes lose battles and stuff because of their
And I'm not seeing all the wrecks from the track either, because I'm just watching a condensed 30-minute thing. But I was going to say, like, these guys are like, for an event that's not FD or something like that, is some high-level driving with a dangerous track. Like, real dangerous. Because these guys are transitioning on that inside wall on the concrete, and you're doing it blind behind the other guy. You're just like, I hope I'm here. Like, like if the other dude stuffs it, you are 100% stuffing it if you're on his door.
Which is the weirdest thing about FIA, because they're so safety stuff, but they do some of the most crazy, dangerous stuff ever, and have no problem with it at all. So, yeah, Europe's well, Europe's even just that's what I've done most of my driving. You know what I mean? Like most of like my pro stuff has been Europe, and it's wild over there. It's sick, and there's so many drivers because there's every different country, and there's like rich people in each country that can support a handful of good drivers from each country. So you do, somewhere like Drift Masters, you do see a lot of that. Is those drivers you've never heard of with names you can't pronounce absolutely destroying.
I was going to say also one of the differences I see in like American versus European driving, like moving around and stuff, everybody says Americans are like very flamboyant or like loud and boisterous or whatever, but man, no, like Eastern European dudes, when they get mad, oh my God, they go off the chain, just screaming, threatening, I'll kill you. You know, like You know, like
I've been there.
So I was gonna say, like, that doesn't happen in America the same way, because like you look at some, you know, European guys and like they really look like they have lost control in their eyes, if you know what I mean. Yeah. And like they can't focus and like they have so much anger. I don't see the anger in the Americans quite so much. I think that might be some.
The Americans like to have a little yell, but that's all they're gonna do.
Right. They're gonna bark a little puppy or a little dog kind of thing, but they're not gonna bite. But like the European guys, I don't think they're gonna bite either. But like,
oh no.
You think they do?
Oh yeah, I've been there.
But I was gonna say, like, you can see them lose control in their eyes.
Yeah.
And like they just can't take it. Like they have the macho thing, and like they have the ego and all that stuff, which drives them to be good drivers and forces them to do things. But also,
I wouldn't even say it's ego. Like when you've grown up in a lot of these places, like Eastern Europe, and they're the guys our age.
Yeah.
So they've grown up through depressions and whatnot, where you're literally like dog eat dog.
Yeah.
So they're not going to take shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if someone's standing in their way of that and trying to like have an issue, you know what I mean? Like they're going to sort it out, whether it be fists or not. You know.
And in Japan, everybody's just like quiet and reserved, and like I couldn't imagine a fist fight at a drift event in Japan. I'm sure it happens.
Yeah, I was gonna
but like
say,
it's not like the rest of the world.
Yeah.
They don't even speak badly about something openly.
Yeah, to an extent. There's definitely guys that do it, but yeah, for the most part, they try and be. They're just not the kind of people to bring up an issue.
No.
They just quietly sort of leave it alone. Like, honestly, I've seen people in Japan get on a train, place their stuff on someone else, get themselves tidied up, and sit down and then pick the stuff off. And the other person, like, if you did that in any Western country and you put something on someone's lap, they'd be like, on the ground. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's a way different mentality over there. So I guess that is very different. But you know, we've even seen on this trip where the angry person on this trip was an American. But
was an American?
Was an American. But
you were
I wasn't
angry?
No, I'm just one of those people that doesn't take shit.
Yeah, there you go. He was in the argument.
Yeah.
You call out the person. It's okay.
No, so, Matt thought that I caused a chain reaction crash and came up and started getting in my face.
But he's just like you in Chelsea, where all you guys have personalities and are hot heads. And that's good for media. That's good for everything.
But I don't think Matt quite understood the fact that I was ready to swing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to take that shit. And it definitely wasn't. I was third car back. The lead car messed up. The car after that. And then we had like this little pile up. And for me, personally, like, it was a bit... it definitely caught me off guard and instantly pissed me off. And it wasn't a thing where I'm like into that stuff.
Are we going to shoot off?
No, we got to pull in Adam's car.
Cool.
We're going to do beauties of it. You guys can still film it.
Cool.
Just
do it.
be doing over there.
Yep, we're good.
Just so you know the car.
Yeah, no, perfect. We're in the middle of a hoonigan shooting on their stuff while they're trying to shoot, but we're good.
We're good.
I feel like this is our day, and they can't take it away from us. We're here because of Drift Week, so like it's Drift Week stuff at Hoonigan.
We pulled some strings.
Yeah,
we pulled some strings. But yeah, I guess that side of it as well, and I guess I come from not like a super bad part of the world, but when I was growing up, the area that I grew up in was very much like you had to fight yourself out of a lot of situations, and if you didn't sit back and let someone talk to you like that. So
yeah.
And that's sort of where I am. We're good as gold now. Like, it was a tiny issue, but it was just, if you have a wreck in a train, like, that was your choice to get in that train.
Oh, I agree.
You know what I mean? Like, jumping out and blaming someone for it is pretty stupid.
Take the Corvette that burned down. It's a terrible experience. I feel really bad for it, but at the end of the day, I always write my car off 100% in my brain anytime I go drifting. Like, if the car gets damaged or whatever, I understand because I took it on track, and I can't be mad at anybody. I can't whatever, because if you drift for 10 years, you are bound to completely demolish a car at some point, in some fashion. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was going to say, you kind of have to, like, dissolve that on your brain, and if I do that in advance, I can't be mad at friends, and I can't destroy friendships because something happens, like...
Yeah.
So that's my mentality. Yeah. But I understand other people's mentality is like, I built this car, I am gonna win with this car, this is my entire life and passion, you fucked it up, I'm gonna kill you!
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not like that.
Yeah, I guess...
But I'm also not competitive, and I'm not a winner because of that.
Yeah.
So, like, that's something that's missing in my genetics.
The thing is, too, with...
Where my dad was super like that.
Yeah.
Oh, we still have to interview Adam, too.
Yes.
What a weird angle. Oh.
Can we help you, Adam?
Straight up everyone's noses.
I thought you guys were just hanging out. I was like, oh, cool, I can come hang out. But now y'all are filming. And...
You can still hang out.
He's a vlogger. He's used to being filmed. We're almost done anyways.
Let's go.
Adam, yell up, without even getting in the video, yell up our next subject.
Do I know it?
No.
Oh, I'm
We're gonna
giving you a
talk about it.
subject?
Yell a subject up.
Street drifting.
Okay, street drifting in America sucks. For some reason, we don't really have street drifting almost anywhere that I know of. I have not ever seen it. Some people say they are, but it's normally parking lot drifting. Because I started street drifting.
Yeah.
But like it's cul-de-sac drifting, it's parking lot drifting, it's, you know, square corner drifting kind of thing or whatever. You are a street drifter that actually got good at street drifting. It's completely different. You get unlimited seat time.
I wouldn't advise it as far as a way to get into the sport, but when I started, we had like no track days in Australia.
Yeah.
And your only option getting into this sport was street drifting, and the guys that got me into it were street drifting constantly, and that's just how I got into it. But I very much, you know, going to jail in Australia is kind of tough. You have to you have to be really shitty to go to jail in Australia, and I nearly went to jail because of all the unlicensed and, you know, hoon charges, which is ironic, we're at Hoonigan, but that's where the hoon thing comes from, is Australia's, and you know, what they call street racing and all that sort of stuff. So I wouldn't advise it as far as things go, but that at the time for me was the way to get in, and I never intended it to be go pro. I just loved drifting.
But
and
you had
my only
beautiful
option-
mountain roads and stuff. And
yeah,
like
a lot of
awesome
mountain
places.
roads. Yeah, a lot of mountain roads we'd go to, like dead end roads, which you know there's not going to be any traffic on, and you know the only person you're putting at risk is yourself and your friends who are fully aware of what's going on. But you definitely have all of that here, and I think, you know, even just based on the stuff, you know, me and Adam have been driving across the country here, like I've been driving ignorantly across the states without a radar detector or any of that sort of stuff, to be honest with you, and I haven't even been glimpsed at.
You're in a G35.
But regardless.
No, I know, but if you were in something flashier, it could have been a problem.
Yeah. I don't think the whole police thing is anywhere near as bad as people believe it is in the States, because there's like places like Melbourne in Australia. If we drove in even here with all these cars at once, there would have been a cop car within half an hour coming to see what the hell we're up to, because it's a bunch of hoon vehicles. You know, and
I was just
quite
talking
often,
about, I don't have as many good drift spots in America that you could drift.
Yeah.
Like, especially not in Texas, there's not good drift spots. Some kid will be like, oh, I killed it at this warehouse, but like that kind of sucks. You're not going to get good at a warehouse.
Would you consider like driving? See, a lot of the good spots, especially in Melbourne where I grew up, where the cops are super sucky, like we would often drive like 2 hours to a spot in the mountains.
Yeah.
And then spend the night out there, because there's just nothing out there as far as like people, houses.
And you brought jacks and you brought
We
tools and you
trailer
brought wheels.
tires. We'd generally have someone come with like a truck that has tires and spares and things like that, and we'd spend the whole night up there and drive home at 6 a.m, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, people just don't do that around here.
Yeah.
I'm sure they do somewhere, but like I don't see it. And I'm all over the country drifting.
I think Rudy would probably be a great example of that, because all he's got is street drifting where he is. The closest drifting to him is over 3 hours away, so he street drifts a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said it's mostly like mountain pass sort of stuff. So I guess
rad.
it happens, but you probably aren't publicising it as much in case the police get hold of it. And
the other problem I have is I don't
Kelly,
like.
wasn't it?
Well, I was gonna say I don't like driving single runs very much. Like, you know, I want a tandem.
Yeah.
So even if I do find a drift spot, it's hard to have your friends out there and the cars be equal and, you know, like everybody be on track at the same time and not have a problem.
Yeah.
If a car breaks, you know, the other dude immediately stops and then you stop.
We have a lot of it, I guess, in Australia.
Yeah.
There has been a lot of it because, there's not as much access to tracks. Where I live now, because I run one of the tracks, we have 2 tracks. So, like, you realistically don't have an excuse to street drift, but there still is that street drifting scene, and it's still reasonably strong. Where you go down to Melbourne, where they don't have a lot of track days, and the street scene is, like, strong, like, really strong. Like, it's not uncommon to be in a 12-car train on the street.
Yeah,
It's
that's rad.
absolutely not uncommon.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, I see so much cool stuff from Poland and France and stuff of street drifting.
Oh,
You know, up in the mountains, especially in the snow.
I've been street drifting on Warsaw City, and it's crazy because you just pay off the cops, and
Wow.
it doesn't really matter. And in Russia, there's no actual like hoon law,
Yeah.
so they don't even know what to do when they get pulled over. They just give them a little bit of money, and the cops go away, sort of thing. So
That's crazy.
there's definitely places where it doesn't really matter. I guess Eastern Europe, people can be paid off quite easily. So
I was gonna say, I was street drifting in Africa recently, and like we do go street drifting, but like it's just not that good, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
it's, you know, just flat streets, you know, one corner to another. You're just like, meh. I don't need to do that. Like, for the amount of effort it is, like, street drifting needs to be really good is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess when people have, like in Melbourne, for an example, is we have so many spots within 10 minutes drive of each other. So you'll like kill a spot, bail, next spot, kill it. Like,
and these are completely no houses around and stuff, or are there houses?
Yeah, there's houses kind of close, but that's what I was saying. You basically hit it. You hit 10, 15, 20 laps. And then move on. Yeah. Okay. Move on. Go to the next spot.
I've done amazing, or I didn't actually get to drive, but I went up and we went into the mountains of Japan and watched, like 100 cars up there street drifting with different lines. They were forming lines.
Yeah.
They had marker people.
Etiquette.
It was amazing. Etiquette, but also the most dangerous, ignorant thing I've ever seen in my life. Yep. Children just standing 1 foot from where the cars are coming around.
That's silly.
I mean, like, no. It's very odd how the Japanese have no sense of their own mortality when it comes to drifting, if you know what I mean. Like, they'll literally just stand there, like, on their phone, not paying attention as cars, like, use them as a clipping point. And you're just like, and some of the cars aren't good.
Yeah.
You're like, you should not be trusting these people. Oh my God. I've been places before and I just see like a car hit someone and they fall down and get back up and you're like, what was that?
I guess it's not even a Japanese thing. Look at your guys, what do they call it? The sideshow things like that. That stuff's
That's weird.
That stuff's retarded.
I've never been
getting hit and just getting up and like.
Yeah, but I mean, I've never been to that. I've never really gone to car shows.
Yeah.
I mean, I go to SEMA for stuff, but like I've never really been to car shows. I've never been to Cars and Coffee before. I don't do anything car related outside of drifting, so all that stuff is weird to me.
You're a weird one though.
I like drifting. I don't like cars.
Yeah, that's fair.
Cars are a pain in the butt.
They absolutely are a pain in the butt.
They're miserable. They make you feel bad about yourself.
I would use yesterday as an example. I was quite down based on just needing to fix the car and not being able to get the part and stuff. It like ruined my day completely and made me stuck at the house. So I was like grumpy about it. But yeah, street drifting it has a place, and it definitely has a place in the sport. Unfortunately, whether people like it or not, it is part of it, and it forever will be. It's just like people go crazy. I've seen a lot of people, drifting ruins it, blah, blah, blah. But then, like, you look at drag racing, and now there's TV shows that have revitalized drag racing. Yeah. Based on street racing.
I was going to say, I don't mind street racing or street drifting at all. I don't even really mind street racing. But I was going to say street racing in America has gotten so ignorant and ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was driving through Houston one night and cars were passing me at 200 mile an hour closing speeds and we're trailering.
Yeah.
Like, just the wind would almost blow me off the road from a car passing me. I'm going 55 or 60 because it's a not a fast road and they race around in this loop. And like these cars are like, they could at 200 miles an hour, you can't control a car.
Yeah.
I mean, like if something happens, like someone's dying. I was going to say street racing like that has gone ridiculous. That's during Texas 2K, and there's 2,500 horsepower cars running around in the streets.
Yeah, and I guess
I feel old when I'm like, dang, street racers like that. But you're like, that's ridiculous.
It's strange because it is, like people often like, street drifting's ruining drifting, blah, blah, but like.
I've never heard anybody say that.
Oh, you haven't? No. We get it often in our country with the whole hoon thing.
But again, we don't have much street drifting.
Got stuff like people getting shot all the time here to put on the news, and they're not concerned necessarily with someone doing a burnout. No. Where in Australia, it's like someone did a burnout, like
makes the news,
front paper, in front of
them. Hilarious.
It's drifting on street just happens, and it's not going to go away, and it never will. No matter how many tracks there are, there's still going to be guys that go out on the street.
No, it's
like you said, drifting's a drug, and street drifting's for a lot of people is an even more addictive drug because of the excitement of it.
I was going to say, I definitely feel like the drug aspect, hitting the jump at Minami 50 times in a row, if you know what I mean. Things like that, you just like, when you're tandeming, and do you still get that at Minami? Like you just get a adrenaline hit every time you hit the jump and like tandem.
Yeah, I would say just tandem in general. The amount of times you'll be watching the temp gauge just going off the clock. But you'll be in the sickest tandem, and it's like, I know I'm blowing up my motor right now, but I'm not stopping.
Yeah.
I can't help but think like that is so relatable to a drug addiction, because you know what you're doing is 100% bad. And it's going to cost you a fortune. It's going to potentially wreck everything for you for the next few months, because you'll have to fix your car, but you don't stop. Yeah. You just keep your foot in and you stay on door because you're just having the time at that exact moment. It's pure bliss. Yeah. And there's not anything in the world but your tire on that lead car's door, and who the heck else cares? And that's probably why I got so super pissed off when we were at Albuquerque because I was having the best time drifting with my friends, and then my car just had some weird electrical issue, and I just straight up lost it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I was like a crackhead who got his drugs taken
I saw
away
you throwing
from
your helmet.
Yeah, there's a dent in my roof because of it.
Jeez, I don't do that at all. I don't have that self-destructive nature.
I was just so upset.
Yeah.
You know, I just wanted to have fun with my friends doing dumb shit.
Yeah.
And that got taken away from me by something so minute. Like, I don't think I would have been less upset by a blown motor. It was more the fact that I didn't know what was wrong, and it was something little and frustrating and something that had been pissing me off for the entire day, and then I thought it was fixed. I got to have super rad time with my friends, and it was just in that peak of fun where I literally was picking my way through the tandem line, and I got to lead. I was at the lead spot, and it was like, yeah, let's go, boys. And the car just cut out on me, and it was just like the worst. It was literally the worst. There's far worse things that can happen to you in life, but at that very moment then, I was so into my drifting that I just so insanely badly didn't want it to end. No matter how much drifting can be considered bad, I owe every single thing I have and every friend I have and my entire life that as it is to drifting. And I think I have a pretty damn good life. I know and call some of the best people in the world, in my opinion, my best friends, and I would not change that for the world. So get yourself a drift car. It doesn't have to be expensive. You know, I've absolutely proved that with a cheap car. I could still fit the family in, and I could absolutely drive the kids to school in this car. It still has air conditioning, it has everything, and it's still actually really comfortable to drive. But you can still go and rip and throw it on doors of, you know, pro cars and things like that on the right tracks. So yeah, get a drift car, have fun with it, go to Aaron's events, come out to Australia, drive my track, and just have a damn good time, because drifting is the best drug in the world.
I've never actually thought to tell people to come to my events in the videos. I should do that.
Yeah.
I'm so bad at advertising. All right, thank you so much, audience. Thank you very much to the sponsors, Inky Wheels, BC Racing, Fitfo, and also What Monsters Do for sponsoring this whole series and everything. Thank you to Sai for filming. Thank you to all the drivers for being here. And thank you for Hoonigan to giving us a burn yard today. It's so cool to have, this is my closing thought. You just kind of said it, but I was gonna say, because of drifting, I know a bunch of the best drivers in the world. I have amazing friends. We were just like, oh, let's go shoot at Hoonigan, or let's go shoot with, you know, whatever. Like, we're at the top of the game on so many, not me top of the game, but like, you know, we're around all the A players, I guess you could say, or whatever.
Yeah.
You have an idea and we just execute it. We're like, let's go do this at the Burn Yard with Drift Week or whatever. And Luke called him up and made it happen. Or like, let's go do this or let's go do that. We just make it happen. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's so cool to be at the point and the thing that you love, whether it be video games or, you know, drifting or sports ball or whatever, that you can go do whatever you want within the thing.
Yeah, and I think
It makes me feel spoiled.
And again, even cooler is we have got ourselves in a position right now where we're making history. Like Drift Week, it's a first of, and that's just sick. That is sick.
Cool.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it's going to be like in a few years, but if it's like my normal drift events, you know, we scaled up. Sai's been coming to them forever.
Yeah.
It was originally like 4 dudes coming to my events, and we just go play around, and then it got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now it's like, you know, 120 drifters and
I feel
whatever.
like this thing doesn't need to be scaled up from a point of view of drivers, but we can 100%. There's always improvements. There's always ways to polish it up, and you know, it's such a good thing. And I think there's been so many drifters. Like, it's been in the back of my mind forever with watching Drag Week. How sick it would be to do that with drift cars.
I don't think I could do this with 300 cars though. I'd shoot myself.
Oh hell no!
I would be awful, and I wouldn't know anyone's name.
The track time would suck.
Yeah, it wouldn't be any fun. But with like 15 guys or so, it's pretty rad.
It's personable. Everybody can hang out. Everyone can have a good time. We can all share accommodation and run amok. I don't know. It's been excellent, and you did an amazing job picking the crew this time around.
Thanks for coming.
And it's been sick.
All right.
And I already know that there's a lot of other people planning to do like Drift Weeks, but I don't think they even know.
No.
Like, the amount of money realistically involved in doing this.
From either the driver or the organizer's perspective.
From every perspective, it's not a cheap thing to do. Like, it would be up there with doing an FD round for most of us, I think, as far as costs go. So, but I think what we've just done now is like funner than an entire season of driving pro drifting cars.
It's also more, we're leaving, but I was going to say, the thing I like about this idea or other ideas, like going to Japan and doing our Ebisu content or this Drift Week thing, I feel like going the normal traditional route of like I have to go be a Pro 2 and then Pro 1 or whatever driver is unimaginative. And everybody is bringing so much money to the table to do whatever they want in drifting, and everybody throws the same ball against the wall and gets a similar result, maybe to differing degrees.
Yeah.
But like, you are not going to go de-seat if you're a normal Pro 2 guy. You're not going to go de-seat JR and James Dean. And like, I'm not being mean, but like, there's just so much behind them. You're probably not going to do it. And even if you did, you're a statistical error at that point. Whereas a lot of these guys could have more imagination and do something cooler with their money, I guess you could say. Because to end up, I always lead the conversation on money, but to go for all of the for an Australian, to do some type of like, you get good at drifting and then you go do international Pro 2 and then you become a world-class Pro 1 driver, how much would that cost as an Australian person starting out? To do all that?
It'd be, to do all of it would have to be $1 million ordeal.
Yeah.
It'd have to be. I don't ask Josh.
So, anyways.
Well, no, in real, like, he's the most realistic option, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he spent he would have had to spend over $1 million with his U and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
like, to become.
But I say these kind of numbers and everybody's like, Aaron, you're lying, it's idiotic. But if somebody else says a number like that,
100% makes sense. Like, you got to think, like, even an FD season now, and the thing is, you can't just be like,
and we're talking about multiple years too. It's not 1 year.
You can't just be like, I got to Pro in Australia, and like, even doing a Pro year in Australia in my series on a low budget is still a $50,000 a year.
Yeah.
And so, you know, again, leading from there up to getting to here, you're generally going to be, you know, or was a millionaire. You were a millionaire and now you're not anymore, but you've made it to Pro 1. Yeah. There's so much money that has to be spent. And like you said, there'll be, if anyone was to do it without crazy money already behind them, they've fallen through the cracks and are extremely fortunate.
Yeah.
Because you know what I mean? Like, those new things that came back in the day where a lot of the guys that are there now, where your Fosbergs with a Nissan relationship and Vaughan with a Ford relationship and things like that, then those aren't going to pop up anymore. Mm-hmm. It's going to be, you know, none of those guys are going anywhere anytime soon. Look at Japanese, like half the pro drifters are 60 years old. Mm-hmm. I don't know necessarily.
That's also a different model. I feel like the FD guys have a better chance of piecing out and going, you know, the Reese Millen or the Sam Hubinet or the Tanner Faust method of where the champions leverage FD to go do something else and make more money and become more successful with a more relaxed lifestyle than racing. Because it's really hard to go racing. Racing is so hard.
Would you say that those guys weren't necessarily drift guys to begin with, so that was probably an end goal with it? Or?
You're right, too. I remember, I don't want to say anything about any individual person, but they were absolutely not drifters. They didn't even show up with drift cars when they first started.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of friends that told me the exact same thing. They were like, I wanted to be a professional road racer. I did that for a couple years. I rented spots in teams. It wasn't working out. Drifting looks like it's on the ground level and I can get in like monster trucks. And this is going to be the next monster trucks. And they jumped in and it didn't work out for them.
Yeah.
But it worked out for a bunch of other people. Yeah. And like they had cars of some kind. I have a friend that I use as an example. He drove Formula D in a leased 350Z. And then when he was done with the Formula D, it didn't work out. He cut the cage out and returned the car with a bunch of damage and stuff.
Oh.
But I mean, like, you know, people pushing that hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
He never returned to drifting, never did another drift event after Formula D.
Yeah.
And he might have done, you know, some practice days before Formula D started, but like he jumped straight in.
Yeah.
There was no drifting before Formula D, there was no drifting after Formula D.
Yeah. I think that is unique from a point of view of like the guys you mentioned, like your Hubinets and
those dudes don't go out to drift events and like go play around. They're not drifters.
Yeah, they
drift, but you know what I mean?
Business sense to get involved in drifting.
Yes,
you know what I mean. It wasn't like a I'm passionate about this sport sort of thing, which doesn't take anything away. They're still amazing drivers. It was just that it's so different for people that have that utter passion. Whether
and you're not
it's
getting
a big sport or
businessmen
not.
in like that anymore because it's too difficult. Because you can't just come from another discipline, learn drifting in a month, and then go dominate.
No.
You know what I mean?
No, you can't. It's too far. It's too everyone's too good now. You can't do that. Where back then you could be good at business and make a team. And it was funny, some stuff we were talking about the other day is how when drifting was first coming around, it was all these drag teams getting involved and just trying to make a business out of it. But they quickly disappeared, sort of thing.
They were very good at making a team out of it, too, or like a business out of it for a year or two.
Yeah.
And then they pieced out, and all these teams showed up with 18-wheelers, full wraps. And I mean, like an 18. Anyways, I don't need to talk about money. You don't understand how expensive all this stuff is. But when you run a pro team, like the catering budget's huge.
Yeah.
The catering budget's bigger than like your original budget that you were racing with.
Yeah, exactly. No, it gets
stuff
crazy.
is crazy.
It gets crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And Sai, I don't even feed him. No, we feed Sai. Sai's good. Okay, let's end this. Thank you so much. Boom. Bye, audience. See you later.